All right, hello and welcome back to Disability in Fiction. This is one of our two disability workshops that we are running here on Skill Camp. This is Disability in Fiction, which is on WordCamp, and we look at lots of different types of media from across all media format layout stuff. Books, comics, pretty much anything. So yeah. Uh, I am going to just take you through the PowerPoint, but I know I get it all the time. Um, but yeah, just so that you are all aware, just a bit about what this workshop is and what we try to do in this workshop. So yeah, this workshop exists to help basically have better representation of disability in the media. Because boy, I can tell you hundreds of times where it just sucks. And I was talking about it to a psychologist friend and so earlier today, and I'm going to have a conversation about it later on. But yeah, the media has failed so many disabled people, creating misinformation that is so damaging. Um, and sorry, um, people who are disabled, they can come from all walks of life, any demographic, any age, gender, religion, race, or socioeconomic background. And disability is the only minority that you can suddenly become a part of. And so we basically want more representation for all people. Um, and it's really important that representation, as I say, is is beneficial, and isn't damaging for yeah, isn't harming the community or society in any way. Um, Now this is a safe space for all people, whether you're disabled or able-bodied, and because of that, we do have some guidelines that we put in place. Um, And so we ask that you are respectful to everyone, and we will not tolerate insults under any circumstances. Um, Now, questions are welcome. We do ask that you keep it respectful. And sometimes it's hard to ask questions not in a rude way. And so the way that we sort of moderate it as mods is we listen out for the intent and try and work out, your reasonings sometimes behind asking sensitive questions. Um, if you would like your script or your content read or or reviewed, then we ask that you give helpful feedback to another person on either script camp or word camp, and that just helps us to make sure that you're giving as well as taking. Because skill camp is run by volunteers. None of them are paid, um, or almost none are paid. I'm not paid, and so we want to be given and receiving at the same time. Because the amazing event squad do it for free. So yeah, and we are all here to learn and improve. So be patient with others if they don't understand the first time. And also, having said that, if you want to learn about something, obviously keep an open mind, because like I keep saying, there's lots of misrepresentation and misinformation. So you might think one thing, and it turns out that actually, through no fault of your own, you've been told incorrect information. So yeah, do keep an open mind. Now there are 5 types of disabilities. Oh, Mr. didn't export the way it was meant to. And Mr. Lad usually looks a lot better. It doesn't today. Oh well. Um, there are 5 types of disability for purposes of this workshop. Um, Physical, intellectual, hidden disabilities, mental health, and sensory. And all people with any of those types of disabilities and people without disabilities are absolutely welcome here to contribute. As I said earlier, this is this is one of 2 disability workshops that we do. Um, this is disability in fiction for WordCamp, and we look at all types of media, whereas disability in screenwriting on ScriptCamp is specialized for screenplays. So screenplays in that workshop will always take priority, although we may look at other media. And yeah, all media, including screenplays, is welcome here. And we specialize in novels, but we also look at, like I say, other types of media. So what are these workshops about? As I keep saying, we welcome disabled and able-bodied people alike, and we want to help you write better disabled characters. Disability in fiction is this. That is today. Not sure why it says this next Saturday. But anyway, it's now. And we alternate every other week. These are wrong slides. We will be looking at your disabled characters in your story this week. We'll share disabled experiences to make characters more realistic. We might do character prompts or picture prompts, that sort of thing. Review disabled characters in existing media, particularly novels and short stories, and occasionally perform sensitivity readings. And then next week is disability in screenwriting. And again, every other week. Oopsie. So we'll look at, it's very much the same thing, just we specialize in screenplays and TV and film. So yeah, let's get started then. Now we've got all the preamble out of the way. Let's see if anyone's got anything they want reviewed, anything they need help with in any way. Yeah, we do have Willow's comic lined up. She's very kind and says that she wants other people to take priority. She has been waiting since it's near enough for the start of the workshop, though. So if you can send that across, and we'll take a look at that. But also, while Willow does that, if you guys have anything you want to upload, then do so now. And while you do that, if anyone else has any questions as well, maybe about a character that you're writing. Notice that we don't have anything. Nuke's still typing. Oh, I have rewritten a script I showed you last week, but would also rather let up perhaps priority. When are you going to say something? Oh, we have a comic. Wonderful. Let's take a look at this then. Hopefully you can all see this. Yeah. Actually, I'm going down over so you can see it easier. So, Willow, while I download this, Would you like to give us a bit of a intro into, your comic? Because I think we know a bit about this.
Sure. So I've been working with a creating stories around a disabled dragon character. I've been working with these stories for quite a few years now, and these comic strips were some of the first things that I wrote. I did not do the art. I hired a wonderful artist, and she did a great job in kind of making my vision kind of come to life. Um, so some things have definitely changed over the years. So for the record, I do also have a YouTube channel with some shorts on it. This predates the shorts, and so this is something that was never made into one. And I'm hoping that the representation in this is good. It's this particular story. It is completely fictional, but kind of the message it gives is the entire reason why I created Pop and Jay and this entire world. Is because in real life, a friend of mine, his mother was killed in a car accident, and I didn't know what to say to him, and so that's what more or less inspired this. I can already see like some things not necessarily problematic, but uh, that's not how things work, kind of things in or that is um uh see things that are, well, that's not how that works, kind of stuff. um so for anyone who's heard me talk about uh the characters, they would know, well, Pop and Jay, the blue dragon, and Ginseng is the white dragon. There's two other uh friends in the friend group. um Seedles, who is brown, and Marigold, who is, well, golden. They're more they get added to the story later, so those are characters that never that I've never actually introduced. One thing that has become outdated is I wanted to deal with or showcasing like the different races of dragons, and that is actually something that I dropped. So there's multiple body types in here, but that is something I dropped because it's just too complicated to try to describe. So now they're just all ordinary looking dragons. But anyway,
Cool.
that is the backstory.
Cool. I'm just going to try and open it up.
I don't know if you'd like me to read it, or let me know when you're ready.
So I'm just trying to open it now. My job is not to be made easy. Okay. Right, give me a second. I'm going to. You know what? I made my job over complicated, and it's not working out. So I'm going to do what I did last week and just stream from my primary account. Give me a second.
Yeah, so while Joel is dealing with the technical difficulties, um, a- anybody have any current thoughts before we read it?
So Willow, can you share some of the backstories of the characters? Because I know you introduced Pop and Jay a while back, but I don't think you mentioned like what her actual backstory is. I know she was injured, but like I don't think you went into detail about like what that was, or is that something that you're still working on, or
No, I know all of their backstory. Um, I just haven't really talked about her story as much because it hasn't been important to any of the stories.
oh,
Yeah, uh, she was in an accident at this point. She's been in a wheelchair for 5 years. She was around about 5 years old when the accident happened. So, all these draglets are about 10 years old. Yeah, so she was in a uh, beyond she basically ran out into the road chasing a ball and was hit by a car. That's the human kind of thing.
mm,
Um it is, the story is a bit more dragonfied, but that's the core of it. Um Seedles, uh he is the brown dragon. He was he was uh severely abused by his biological mother and the state. When he was 3 years old, the state came in and removed him from his family, from his mother, and he was adopted by uh, an older uh, butler who works at the royal palace. Um, Ginseng is she's the white one. She she is a star athlete. Her father is extremely bigoted, and also the school coach, which Pop and Jay is uh, also a fellow athlete. She um, she believes that self worth or she believes that her self worth, her personal self worth, is tied into her physical ability, and she has no worth outside of that. Um, Also, her parents divorcing, but she's like in the middle of it, and basically it's a major custody battle, and it's a really horrible, messy divorce, and they are putting her in the middle of their problems, asking her to choose sides, basically, between her parents. Um,
mm,
Marigold, uh, she just moved to town. Um, I do have a comic of her meeting Pop and Jay for the first time. Uh, her her parents divorced, and now her mother married a new guy, and so that is why she's moving into Makara.
Alright. I think I.
With of the jealousy of her parents um having another baby, her stepdad and her mom having a baby, and where does that leave her?
Alright. I think
So
we're all set up now. Thank you for that. But yeah, let's take a look at this comic. It will be on the screen share here. Can you all see that clearly?
let's see.
Yeah.
Did I see it?
Alright. I'm hoping it's clear enough for you to read.
Okay.
Okay, it's not for me.
All right.
Oh yeah, I can see it. I've never read the comic in a public setting. I guess table read format doesn't quite work.
Yeah, not quite. Not quite. But I'll read it.
Okay, cool. Well,
By Merrick.
Actually, no. I wonder if someone else would volunteer to read it, just so that you can hear it better, maybe.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Sure. I could volunteer.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. That'd be helpful.
Okay. So just start from the top, right?
Yeah.
Buy Marigold, buy Pop, buy Ginseng. Where is Seedles going in such a rush? Every week he visits the sick draglets at the hospital. Should I just keep going, reading, or just
Yeah, just keep going through the whole
Okay,
thing.
that's so sweet. I couldn't be in a place that depressing. I have been the hospital more. Oh, I have been the hospital more than I can stand. It's not depressing. It's really boring. Hi, Seedles, you're here. Ah, singing and dancing. And the mouse said, "Now, who will bell the manticore?" Very bad idea. Don't move. Don't be such a baby. If anything goes wrong, we're already in the hospital. Okay, so then on to the next one. Hold on, I'm gonna download the last page too.
It's on the stream if that's helpful.
Yeah, but on the stream I can't read it as easily.
Okay.
So hold on, let me just see if I can grab. So I'm actually let me just try this. Okay, open in browser. Okay, yeah, I just opened up new tabs, so I'm just reading off of those. Okay, so on the next page, who's the purple dragon? It's the one in bed. So she is it a she?
Yeah, that's a she. That.
Yeah. Okay, so the purple dragon's in the bed. They're a perfect paper snowflake. Mine looks more like a pointy, roundy blooper flop. I'll trade you my snowflake. Purple paper. I want to make more blooper flops. Sure thing. See you later, Marzipan. Marzipan is the purple dragon. Okay. Marzipan wants purple paper to make blooper flops with. Uh, which would she prefer? I don't know. I've never met her. Maybe take all three and let her decide. What is a flopper top anyway? Seedles? Dad? I'm sorry, Seedles. Last night we lost Marzipan. Lost her? How do you lose a patient in a hospital? No, Seedles. I mean, she died last night. You lie. I just saw her yesterday, and she was fine. And so on the last page, Dad, can we talk? Seattle's friend died yesterday. I never met her, but I feel bad for him. What do I say? That's a tough one that even grown-ups struggle with. Every dragon mourns in their own way. Some cry, some never shed a tear. Some want to be alone. Some need to be surrounded by loved ones. Tell him how you feel and let him decide what to do next. Remember, you are there to comfort him, not for him to comfort you. Seals, I just want you to know that I'm sorry you're hurting. I really care about you. Thanks. Do you want to talk about it? No. Do you want me to leave? No. And they watch the sunset together.
Thank you very much for reading that, Luke. Much appreciated. I will just say that in the last 3, what are they called? I was going to say slides, so not slides. But the last 3 shots.
Panels?
Panel?
Panels,
Panels?
that's the word. Yeah. In the last 2 panels at the bottom, the first one, Pop and Jay is in her wheelchair. The second one, she's got out of her wheelchair, and the wheelchair is now parked by the tree. And then in the last one, the sun is setting, just gradually going below the horizon. But yeah, thank you very much, Luke. Yeah, I wonder if anyone's got any feedback for Willow.
I guess. I really liked it, and it was touching, and I cry. But I wish we spent a little more time with Marzipan, with like taking out maybe the Seedles reading to the kids and playing with them, which like I like, but this is about Marzipan and her death, I guess. So it'd be nice if there was more of Marzipan and them spending time together. I feel like it'll make it hit a lot harder. And like, I also like the message behind this, which is just like, just spend time with the person you love while they're grieving, or like ask them what they want, see what happens, sort of deal.
Yeah.
Just like be there for them. And I think that's a good lesson for people to learn. And I hope your friend got what you were saying there. I hope they appreciated it.
Thanks, Lasagna. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a good story to have it. I've often wondered, because I've never really lost anyone I'm close to, and I sort of was thinking, how are you meant to grieve? But actually, I think it's good that the comic is saying, everyone grieves their own way. The person is different. Yeah, you should treat each get it by case basis, as it were. So I think it's got an important message. I think it's basically what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I don't quite know what to say. I do see the point of wish we could spend more time with Martha. This is something that I would want. I'm a pilot, and so this would be an episode. And at that point, I'd like to, first to establish that he volunteers at a hospital. That but then like he connects with all these different kids, and like I want to I want to talk about like like I wanted to have honest conversations about death. And in so much media, there's well, kids never die. But the fact is tragedy does happen. Like my sister in when she was in first grade, one of her classmates a candle burned down their house and one of her classmates died. And you know, I feel like something that adults don't quite realize is that death still affects kids, and I don't want to shield them, but at the same time I don't want to say uh, make it all scary. It's a tough thing to balance. And yeah,
Yeah,
I see
I
you
think
guys.
you did a great job. I really think I think that this strip does exactly what you were hoping to do. Honestly, it does. It's very respectful. It doesn't make it too scary, and I think I really feel like it addresses the issue. Yeah.
Thank you. I talking about the game that they're playing. Yeah, they're it's basically a William Tell moment. And I have a friend who was in the hospital a lot as a kid, and she said this was pretty accurate to how things or their attitude. Well, you're already in the hospital, so that she would have with her friends. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments that Lasagna says, but they're trying to shoot the apple. Joel, I thought it was an American game. Guess it happens in all the schools.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Draco says it does mirror the brief and abrupt way people's lives intersect and sooner or later end. Even if I do want to hang out with Marzipan some more, I kind of like that parallel.
And as Anna said, it's true. I just think after spending more time with her, seeing her healthy and happy, and then suddenly she dies, I think that's hit hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's this is I can't remember what the target audience age range is. Am I right in thinking it's about 10? 10 years
Yeah.
old?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, you don't want to make it too painful. I mean, absolutely, you don't want to shield a child from death, because everyone will come across it sooner or later. But you don't want to upset a child, you know? Which what we're always saying, it's about finding that, right balance.
Yeah, Oh, I'm sorry. Was someone else?
I know. I think we got an echo.
Oh, it's me echoing. Sorry. So I went to I talked to a child psychologist, and I think they were picturing my demographic a bit younger, and I think that is fair. I mean, kids of all ages still watch stuff that's meant for older stuff. But what he said was that young kids tend to see something and then internalize it like it's going to happen to them. So like if you talk about a divorce, then they're going to get scared that their parents are going to divorce.
Right.
And I can see that as a problem.
Mm.
At the same time, I don't want to basically say, hey kid, this is something that you lived through, but it's too dark for other kids to know about.
Lasagna has. Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Lasagna has some feedback. She says you could try making Cedar's response a bit different, like a more in denial dialogue. I feel like the adult just says it too flippantly. Yeah, I did get that as well. Although it is a comic and sounds like it would be short dialogue, but yeah, it does sound quite flippant. Anyway, sorry, I was reading. But they must be adopted, so they're used to it. It's just that Seedles is the kid, and I feel like the news could be broken to him more sympathetically. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think also if you're using this as I was going to say a teaching tool, that's the wrong word. But if you're using it to, tell your young readers about death, you do want to explain it a bit better rather than just say, yeah, sometimes people die. That was kind of the when we die suddenly. Gregor
The
says,
main
but oh, sorry, go on.
the main takeaway that I get from the strip though is like helping helping someone through the grieving process though. So like I really like the way Pop and Jay helps Seedles, like like I guess it really depends on what message you want to focus on, I suppose. Like to me it seemed like what you were really conveying here was how Pop and Jay was helping her friend cope with death, the death of a loved one more than like what his own reaction is. I suppose if you expanded the strip to like to have a little bit more content, it would be something to explore. But I kind of felt like the main point of this was like how to respectfully address other people's grief, and I don't know, like yeah, so I'm not sure if it presents such a big problem to me, that they didn't really cover his response as much. I don't know if that makes sense. Because like it seemed to me the point of it was, how Pop and Jay, like I really, really like that the fact that, she asked what he wanted and was able to, give her friend what he needed in his moment of grief. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going for. That this entire thing was inspired by grief, and basically it was inspired by giving condolences.
mm-hmm.
How do you give condolences? Like that's just something that's never talked about. But hey, we're just supposed to know how to do it and go and talk to someone when they're at their most vulnerable or most sensitive
Mm.
kind of thing. So it is much about the, it, the whole thing is about the grieving process, but at the same time you can't really understand why he's grieving until you see the death part. And so one of the problems I have with this is on a storytelling format is we start with this is Siedel's story, but then we transition then now it's Pop and Jay's story.
Mm.
And so, like, definitely this would need some major reworking. And I think that doing using this in a TV episode would flesh it out a lot more. So much limited, and I gotta say the dialogue is so painful. It's painful to listen, but I honestly don't quite wouldn't know how to make it any better on just in such a short format. But yeah, it like the story just formatting. It makes it the death be the focus, but that was never the focus. It was about the condolences. So
Yeah.
I how to go about that.
Well, so maybe I think you already almost answered your question. Like, if is it possible to somehow tell the narrative from Pop and Jay's point of view right from the start? You know, like so that like instead of it being Siedel's story from the start, that it's Pop and Jay watching Siedel's, and maybe she's more present, or I'm not sure how you would do it, but like I guess that would be the main thing to overcome, would be that, like, have it be her story right from the beginning somehow. Like when they're all together, maybe from her point of view, and maybe she goes into the room with him when they go visit Marzipan. Does that help, or I'm not sure if that's a distraction? But
No, I think that the legitimate problem with the story, and I one thing I struggle with. So my series Draglets of Makara, it's about all of them learning and growing, as well as a few other characters as well. And one of the things I worry about is shoehorning Pop and Jay. Oh, she needs to learn a lesson, so let's shoehorn her into a story where she would never, like, legitimately be. She really does care about entertaining little draglets in the hospital. That this is Siedel's thing. So as I said, this was inspired by my friend's mother, who was killed in a car accident. I never had any reason to meet her. I never had the opportunity, and like caring about some, I don't know. I think you know what I mean. It's just so hard to put into words. Like the whole point of it was that it was someone she doesn't know, because if Pop and Jay then meets Marzipan, then she has to deal with her own grief.
yeah, I understand that. That's true. Yeah. So it wouldn't be easy to write that. Yeah.
I'm going to read some of the comments from other people, because we're falling a bit behind in terms of the chat. Lizanne, read that message already. And Lizanne said for the doctor's bit, I think that's also an important message to show how adults should handle it as well, with sensitivity and care, just like children. Brigo says, also having emotions too big for words. So that's my alarm. Also having emotions too big for words. A very common and relatable reaction to death. Nizani says, it's fine to be upfront, but to just go, yeah, she died, just feels cruel to say to a kid without thinking about their feelings. She must have wanted to show you her best self before she went. would still leave Cedar depressed, but it would give them more to think about. I guess I'm recommending this for a TV episode. Yeah. I guess I'm recommending this for a TV episode itself, but yeah. I think you can make it work just fine without my suggestion, so just trying to give something. Grego says, maybe Seedles can understand. We lost Marzipan from the start.
I want to address that. And, I just want to address that real quick before we go on. That yes, you are. You're right about the whole. It is just kind of so quick. That is because of space, but I and this is something I would want to expand more in more in a series is talking to kids. Like people beat around the bush about, well, she went to sleep. Well, why doesn't she wake up? What do you mean you lost her? What, like, kids get really confused by the by adults not just coming out and saying what they need to say. And so yeah, it is kind of blunt and harsh and something, but I also wanted to show that using like euphemisms or kind of things can also be harmful. There's something that if you remember the movie Forrest Gump, Forrest Gump's mother he asks where his dad is, and she tells him he went on vacation. And so that would ingrain in a kid, vacation is bad. Vacation is something you never come back from. And so that's something that I would want to address in this. I just didn't have any kind of space to do it. And I don't quite have the skill to pull that off too. That's a whole other issue. So I just wanted to address that. But yeah, it is quite blunt.
What, Willow? What if you actually did exactly? What if you just made it into two different stories? Like,
I think that would be best. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly. There's enough here that like Seedle's story could just be his story, and then the other part could be Poppinjay's story, like seeing her friend, and it could have a different start. Like it could, like he's depressed and she sees that he's withdrawn, and so you can maybe expand on it and just split them into two different stories, and they would be marvelous, both of them.
I do agree in my mind with a TV in a TV show. We would have already established in a previous episode that Seedles goes and volunteers, and that Marzipan would actually show up in multiple episodes, or at least 2 episodes before she died. you pull
I will keep reading the comments.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
sorry, let me just read a bit. Maybe CEOs can understand Windows much more stuff, and panics and denies it. Talking frantically about how they were supposed to make snowflakes / blue roof warps, etc., etc. How she seemed so well yesterday. Cedar volunteers. I think understanding the lingo would make sense, but having someone close to them would leave them with such confusion and awful feelings. 5 stages of grief style. I do like the idea of seeing it from Pop's perspective, seeing her friend grieve and trying to reach out, but being denied until she asks her father about it, and then to just be there. My dad can calm him down and say she's gone. Can my dad say something more confusing, like she departed? Shall I think of more? Designer says, yeah, my suggestions are just like, what? Just like a if you had more space scenario. I don't get a reference. Whether you could, you could put a last. What?
That just means like because Willow didn't have enough space, but it's like if you were to make this into an episode, that's what my suggestions would be.
Tell Papa J's story in chronological order, intercutting with Seedles in reverse. That would be confusing. But yeah, I did like the idea of Seedle going through it, and this 5 stages of grief thing, and then in maybe a future edition of the comic, same story. I don't know if that's the style of comic it is, but you see Pop finding out what happened, and being a bit upset but not really upset, and then trying to figure out how to help Seedle grieve. In the last 5 years, and this is what we were referencing earlier. It's a musical written by
that didn't get included and got cut, and it was about the 5 stages of grief. And Seedles, basically in his grief, he pushes Pop and Jay away, reacting with anger and such. Like he basically blows up at her, and it's nothing personal. And then Pop and Jay's father goes to talk to him. They have a long talk. But it was also it would have also included the 5 stages of grief, and the not taking things quite so personally. There might also be a scene of Pop and Jay. This scene where she's talking to her father is actually took place in at the dinner table. And so her mother talks about her experience when her grandmother died of wing cancer, and she couldn't stand to be alone, and she always had to have her family with her. Or when Drock's military partner died, he needed to be alone. Like the more people who were around him and everyone trying to give him condolences, and it was just making him so he couldn't focus on his own feelings. And then the brother, Pop and Jay's older brother, he's in his early 20s. It's like basically, yeah, you don't need to cry. You're tough. You hold strong while dealing with this. And Drock is no, that's not what it's about. Withholding feelings is really bad. There's a difference between not needing to cry and trying to muscle through it. Grace says, I might rephrase, remember, you are there to comfort him, not for him to comfort you. I do agree with the phrase. So a bit of backstory, I guess on me personally, is my workplace had a workplace shooting. 6 of my coworkers were killed and one of them being a friend of mine. And going to church, everyone kept coming up. They kept telling me how bad they felt, and I kept feeling like I had to be there to comfort them. Like I could see that they were hurting, but they were coming up to comfort me, but I was comforting them, and it more and more people. It ended up driving me into a bad depression. The trying to comfort other people. So that is part of the grieving thing or giving condolence thing is, yeah, it sucks to watch your friend hurt, but watching hurt it's better for you to suffer that pain than to want that friend who is hurting to comfort your pain. Yeah, so that's where that line came from, is because of the sheer effect it had on me. But and that is something else that I think that should be expanded upon in like a bigger story.
There's a lot here. Yeah.
It gets freaking complicated.
It does. It does.
But I mean, honestly, like have you guys ever had to encounter something like this? I mean, especially as a kid, did you go to any funerals as a kid, or have you had anything where like someone else's parent died or something? Like no one talks about this, or did someone talk about it?
Well, one of my son's good friends passed away from GBM when he like at the age of 18, and we didn't. I'm just trying to think. It was a really difficult thing, you know. I don't think that it created a lot of tension in the family. We ended up not really. I don't even know what ended up happening to the family. Like, you know, we kind of gave them space and didn't really like 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 I we went to the funeral, but uh yeah, I mean, like it's a really tough thing, you know, especially when somebody goes so young, and and you know that the family is really suffering from it. You know, like we wanted to be there for them, but I don't even know if the marriage survived. You know, like they kind of closed off, and yeah. So, I mean, it's just like you said in you know, it's a very difficult thing for adults to deal with. Like we didn't really. I remember I didn't know, you know, what to do with these you know. This was my son's friend, and we really liked his family, and it was a really difficult thing for us to watch and see, and yeah. So I don't know. Like I guess I can't offer uh any insight beyond like the fact that it's a very difficult thing to deal with. So yeah, it's a very big topic. I just remember it was really heartbreaking when you know, yeah.
Yeah, so I always Yeah, it's kind of tough. That's kind of what I wanted this show to be about, is talking basically to kids about real life stuff that they go through. That But without a doubt, there's a lot of controversialness in it, and there's a lot of age appropriateness. Like, exactly as mentioned, something like this looks like a little kid's cartoon. This looks like, oh, it's such a cute, oh, they're cartoon dragons. Oh, isn't it so adorable? And one of my big worries has always been, oh, look at this uh cute little story, and so happy for my toddler or 5-year-old or something, and then parent gets completely blindsided. Wait, that is not what I was expecting.
Hmm.
So it's like, how do you set up that this is going to have kind of a deeper, darker turn to it, and without spoiling it, but without being preachy? I think that's the number one of the hardest things, is how do you talk about the stuff without being preachy?
I think you've already got it so far.
Yeah.
I didn't find this preachy at all. I found it very real.
Oh, thank you. I felt
I
preachy.
agree. Yeah, I agree. I didn't find it preachy either.
That's good. And in fact, everyone, thank you everyone for giving your feedback to Willow. I hope that helped. Seems like we had a good conversation about that. Yeah, lots of things we raised. Yeah.
I like Grey Ghost's comment about teaching kids and adults, because, like, I think that I think that a lot of children's stories, should be directed both to the kids and the adults. When I wrote my story, that was very much the intention of, like the mermaid story that I wrote was intended to be, read by the adults too, and encourage and inspire kindness. So I think, I think appropriateness. Oh, stream is ended. Am I on still?
No, sorry, that was me.
Oh, okay.
I lost connection for half a second.
Everyone's gone. That happens. You end up the only one in the room. But
Yeah, you're good.
so I was just thinking, like, I don't know if you like tell the story you want to tell, and I and like, I think it's appropriate. I think kids need to know. I mean, because death is a part of life. It's honest. And I think you've done a really good job at making it respectful, and like, we can't shield kids from the reality of our existence, and as long as it's done with this idea of compassion, I don't really see any problem with conveying heavy material, because I think the world is getting to be a pretty heavy place, truthfully, and we can't stick our heads in the sand. We got to be sharing these ideas with each other, and comforting each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I think I want us to move on. Thank you again to everyone for all the points that were raised. I want to open it back up to anyone who has any questions in particular. Yeah, move on to something happy. Yeah, let's try and. I wonder if we've got any. New, I know you said that you
Something
had some.
happier. Okay. Newt, I think you had a story to share too, right?
I think if
What?
I can ask, if I can be cheeky, if I can ask you to.
Willow
Oh,
said
should
move
I?
to something happier, so do you got something happy?
Oh goodness. Well, I no,
Something
actually,
happy.
well, you read the script last time. It's not exactly happy, so I thought maybe we could defer that to another time if we want to talk about something a little bit happier.
And
But
I was going to ask you if we can. I would like us to
I
prioritize
think I
media
have something
other
happy,
than.
but it's such an unfinished idea that we'd spend like 5
Can you
seconds
hear me,
talking about
Lasagna?
it.
I don't think Lasagna can.
I don't want happy, I want delicious pain. Understandable.
No. I mean, someone let Lasagna know that
I
she's gonna
can't
have
hear
to.
Joel. Was he saying words?
I'm saying words and everything. Just let her know
I
that she
took
might
over
have
because I
to.
couldn't hear him.
I
Let
did
her know
have
that she'll have to leave and join these.
I had a technical question I could ask though, or something that that I'm kind of lacking a bit of experience in, and I was wondering if anybody among the group has had any um, experience with. I could talk about the script without actually bring it on. So one of the issues I wanted to touch upon is the idea of phantom limb sensation, and I was just wondering if anybody in the group has either had this or spoken to people who have had these sensations, and what's what typically is done to control these feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very good question. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any answers here. But I'm glad you can hear me again, Zach. That's good. Yeah. Um, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't think any of us have any experience with phantom limb syndrome. I have been doing a bit of research into it because it's something that a couple of my cats actually suffer from for a while. And the way that I understand it, and again, take this with a pinch of salt because I don't have any personal experience. But it's sort of the brain. You know, when you wake up and you stretch, and that stretch is basically your brain checking that all your body parts are still connected and they're still functional and whatever. Um, you experience phantom limb when your brain suddenly realizes, oh, I can't actually feel my arm, or whatever the missing body part is. And so different people experience it in different ways. So, for example, some might experience a tingling or like a stabbing or I think a burning. You can get really different pains of different severities. I just have notes on this somewhere. Let me see if I can pull it up quickly. But yeah, and different factors can trigger it as well. So, for example, stress can be a major trigger. Um, I think temperature can. Hang on, let me see if I can load up my notes because I did do some research into this.
Yeah. Well, I read this really interesting book just for reference. It's called Phantoms of the Brain, and it's by V.S. Ramachandran, who's a psychologist. And he does describe in the book like that they can truly be it can be a lot more bizarre than people think. Like that phantom limbs are just like they could be inverted and twisted around, and that like they can really take a lot of like they're a lot more nuanced than most people think. In the context of the story, I was thinking that the character would wake up feeling a sensation, and I was just curious how they would go about like self, like sort of alleviating the pain, because I was thinking like, because a lot of it, like in the book that I understood, is that it's like some of it can be deferred, and so I was thinking that if the character massaged another area of her body where like the sensations had been remapped, might be a way to kind of introduce people to the idea that these feelings can be very nuanced, and so I was just wondering if, you I was actually considering maybe asking somebody from like one of the rehab centers to like if there are any, if there's clinical information about like what, how people really deal with this in real life.
So I sent a link in the chat. Cleveland Clinic, they've got really great information about some of the symptoms and some of the causes as well. I was just looking at that site to see if there were any sort of, not cures, that's the wrong word, but any ways to manage that pain. How is it treated? So you can, generally there's not really a cure per se, it's more about easing symptoms, which can be done with different medications, beta blockers, muscle relaxers, antidepressants. There's a whole list of stuff. And mirror therapy. I'm not sure if you heard of that.
I've actually seen this. There was an episode in Grey's Anatomy where there was somebody who had an amputation, and they used the mirror therapy. Yeah, it was really interesting. And Ramachandran does talk about it in the book as well, like where it's very effective, where you basically use the mirror to alleviate the symptoms.
I have a couple of statistics that I found about phantom limb. I will read a couple of them out, and I'll also send them in the chat. So 80% of amputees will experience some degree of phantom limb. 70% of amputees experience it being painful, and it generally starts soon after amputation. Sex, smoking, and stress can all trigger or make phantom limb pain worse. And the different types of pain that you might feel include burning, aching, clamping, pinching, itching, tingling, shooting pain, stabbing pain, throbbing, and a twisting pain. So the pains can be really quite varied. So pretty much anything you can think of it, and like I say, there's very different severities as well. I will paste that information in the chat.
Right. So
well, thank
I don't have any kind of authority, but I do follow a YouTuber called Footless Joe, and she talks a great deal about this kind of stuff. And kind of more interestingly, like she's shown it. She's shown what happens, and so it did look really cool. But she was showing how like her whole leg was basically trembling, and so she was furiously massaging it. Even though like that doesn't really help, that's not what causing it. Like she was more or less reacting the way maybe someone would to a really bad Charlie horse kind of thing. But it was her, as she calls it, her nub, her nubbin. And so she was stroking and massaging it, and it was just quivering like crazy. And so, like you mentioned about being, about clinical, getting like clinical information. I think what I think just like a better word, I think you want like personal
Yes, sorry, you're
information.
right. Yes, not clinical. You're absolutely right. I
You want
was
more of the individual. How does it affect the more personal person?
yes, that yeah, like how you would kind of self-medicate or not medicate as like kind of give like take how you would deal with it,
Yeah,
like if
how to
somebody
manage
woke
the
up
symptoms.
how you would manage the symptom in the moment. Because I wanted to show that in the movie, like that she wakes up with this sensation and then has to, like she knows exactly what to do, and take the viewer, the audience through that moment. Like
Uh,
where,
yeah, exactly. And I do love that. And I love she knows how to deal with it. That kind of makes it a lot. I don't know. I think that makes it a bit easier for like people to understand or something is watching her experience her normal day.
yeah,
And I just want to mention that the phantom pain is is uh, uh, it is something great to talk about and should definitely be there and totally realistic. But there's also things you can have fun with the phantom thing, phantom
okay,
feeling. Uh, um, and Footless Joe does talk a little bit like she can move her toes. How she doesn't even have toes, but she can still wiggle them, and she
yeah,
still has the same sensation. And I don't know, it adds a more kind of fun, the light side to it.
mm-hmm,
But both of them are kind of a phantom feeling. Um, and like the whole breadth of experiences through the lens of someone who lost it. So yeah, I like watching. I like watching Footless Joe. I've learned a lot from her, but also she's talked a lot about mental health, and she's um one of the things we don't really see is showcasing the mental strain of disability and having a lot of uh like shows, movies, whatnot. They show like the original disability, or they show later on in life where they're just a totally completely normal person, but like the depression of it can creep up and still affect just a bad day, and it just creates a kind of a why me kind of day, but then like an hour or so later being fine and such. And so she kind of showcases that part of working through depression. Yeah, I'm smiling on this day, but I'm crying on the next day.
mm-hmm.
So she goes through showcases a lot of that.
Okay, I think I'm gonna, yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. I actually followed the link. I opened it on another tab. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. I'll definitely check that out.
Oh, yeah.
There was at one point, uh, she discusses in not quite so in so explicit terms. She talks about sex life and how things have changed from having two limbs to being with her husband, uh, and like those kinds of adjustments, and all of it's part of the living process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, like it sounds like she's got a lot to offer, like, in terms of information. Yeah. Wow, that sounds like a great resource. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
It's a great resource, but if you are able to contact people like in the therapy or something, uh, it could be helpful to get multiple resources and such, as
Yeah,
every
100%.
Oh yeah.
every person experiences it differently.
And I'd say that for every disability. See you, Lasagna. It was thanks for coming here. But yeah, like I was saying, it's yeah, get as many different opinions and experiences as you can with any disability, with any experience actually. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Yeah, thanks, Lasagna. Always nice talking to you too.
All right. Yeah. Let's open it back up then to any other questions that we might have. And just as a general rule, I do prefer if you unmute because it makes my life easier, and I think it sounds better as a conversation. But if you're not able to, then yeah, you can go ahead and type.
How well can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you very well. Hello, Gray.
Okay, great. Not gonna keep this on the whole time, but long enough to really horribly try to ask a question where I don't even think you guys know about this one yet. I think I've been bringing mostly that one music script, but there's another one where I guess it's kind of fantasy sci-fi or something, but it's like these immortal people who they all start their lives being tested by like higher beings, like beings from a plane above or something like that. And they were all bestowed with like quote unquote flaws or something. Like the main two characters, one has a hole right under her rib cage, like a just where I guess the upper stomach would be. It's just like a cartoon cutout hole. And the other one has black X's all over his skin, which those aren't really disabilities. That's just the thing that I'm worried about is the mental aspect of these characters, because one sort of suffers with obsessive compulsive symptoms, and the other one is more like dissociation or suicide ideation, just very disconnected. And I'm worried about the idea of associating mental health with moral failing. People have done that to me throughout my life a lot. Sort of just seeing depression as, oh, you choose it.
Yeah.
So selfish.
Sorry, I'm going to pause you there. This is entirely my fault. At the start of this workshop, I was meant to offer a disclaimer, and I forgot. We've not really spoken about anything that needs a disclaimer before. I won't bother. And we did. So, I'm going to find my disclaimer very quickly.
Okay. I think I know the one you're going to talk about.
Yeah. In this session, there's a possibility that we will discuss sensitive and triggering topics such as mental health, abuse, suicide, substance abuse, and trauma. If at any point you feel it's getting too heavy, feel free to leave without explanation. And if you would like, we can offer some resources for you if you just let us know. Sorry, I was meant to do that beforehand. That is entirely my fault. I put my hands up to that. But yeah, so it sounds like you have two characters, and they both have, well, yeah, I guess they both have physical disabilities, but that's not the bit you're worried about. You're more worried about the mental health conditions they have. So OCD and some sort of dissociative disorder.
Yeah. And like, I'm
Okay.
not even sure the physical like peculiarities they have, or even really disabilities. They're just like things
Attributes of
that
them.
are sort of like the symbolic root of what they're suffering from mentally. Like the
Okay.
idea of having a hole in the middle of your body, like the idea of having nothing inside you and wanting nothing to do with the world or other people, just
Mm,
sort of
okay.
being tired of everything ever since you were born. And
Okay.
the other one sort of obsessively trying to cover up and correct everything, fear of being known, fear of being left behind,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to fix everything all the time and always being in pain. And
Okay.
the physical parts never go away because, like, even though they're not really disabilities, like it would feel kind of cheap to be like,
Yeah.
and now that you've completed your story, you get to have this thing that was wrong about you like resolved, because like all along it was never really wrong. It's like it's nothing to be ashamed of. So I
I
don't
like
want
that.
that to be the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm
Cool.
worried about vilifying the mental illnesses they struggle with. So I'll ask that. What do you guys like have in terms of advice for not vilifying people with mental illnesses, even when some
Okay.
of the symptoms are scary or antagonizing, it seems?
Okay. So I know a bit about dissociation. I don't know so much about OCD, but I don't really see how dissociation would make them a villain. I mean, maybe that's more to do with Split, which actually we're going to talk about hopefully next week. So come along for that. But yeah, I don't see how dissociation would make them a villain. So maybe I've misunderstood something if you want to clarify something. But yeah, I think
Well, can I ask a question? So when you're saying when you're saying you're vilifying, are you thinking that portraying a person with dissociation as having a hole in their middle, that's somehow vilifying the disorder? Is that what I understood? Like that you're concerned that portraying it that way somehow um would be offensive? Is that
That
is
actually, that's something I hadn't considered.
No, well, I'm just asking the question is so when you're saying like so what I was taking away from what you were saying was that you were concerned that these portrayals would be somehow offensive. Is that correct
I'm not sure why I
or
brought up the physical appearances at all. My real
Oh,
question was her this character's sort of disconnection with the world and sort of inability to engage with others' emotions and confusion in regards to that, sometimes like
okay,
outright fear or disgust, which like she can't help that, but other like people watching might be like, oh, okay, well, it's just a jerk. People with dissociative issues must be jerks. Know what I mean?
right,
How do I
okay,
avoid that?
yeah, okay. So this uh sounds less like a dissociative disorder and possibly a personality disorder. So there's a personality disorder that one of my characters has, um, unofficially because I need to do more research into it. There's one called schizoid personality disorder,
I
and I
was
will,
sort of I was sort of looking into
yeah. Let me send you the link because I think I also have a link of that somewhere.
Let's just switch the question to that. How to portray a schizoid character without the intention of fixing them and not like vilifying their traits that other people might find hard to understand.
Okay, cool. Let me get it there. So try and find the link to what I need. That's where it is. Schizoid personality disorder there. Copy link. Paste. So schizoid personality disorder is where you feel you struggle to connect with your emotions. You struggle to feel emotions. You have less interest in building social relationships. You prefer being more of a a loner. I don't like saying that, but yeah, you prefer being independent and keeping yourself to yourself. Emotional coldness, detachment, and often symptoms similar to dissociation. So yeah, I believe this. So I'm a sucker for character backstories and getting really deep. So if I go too deep for your story, I'm sorry. Just feel free to stop me at any point. But there are links to this condition to trauma in childhood, typically emotional abuse, and that can cause schizoid personality disorder. So that seems to be what you want to portray. So the question is, how do you portray that without vilifying, without making them seem like a nasty person, or how do you show the condition without making them a bad person? I'm gonna open it up and see if anyone has any ideas.
And I will add that she, I think it's pretty common with that, right? To have a very rich inner fantasy world that, like, that's one of the only things outside the other main character, her brother. And even then, a lot of her relationship with the other main character is annoying because he's so emotional. But she really pours all of her emotion into that inner fantasy world. Like, she likes tying her ankle to some anchor in a doorway and just floating in a large black void. It's just like casually there in the place that they live. And she just thinks for hours and hours and hours and gets so annoyed when anyone comes in and interrupts.
Okay.
And another problem you have with something like that is I think a lot of people with schizoid personality will have a not really any inclination to like no end goal. Like they're just sort of content to be solitary and not really, I don't know. They really want for nothing, so I've read. But I can't speak for all of them, and I probably am not relaying that information accurately at all.
We can go really deep into this because it goes so. There's different types of this disorder as well. So there are subtypes. So let me send you a screenshot from Wikipedia. So it's 4 subtypes. Each are slightly different. Where's my Discord one? There. I will open it up so you can see it. So we have languid schizoid, which is sort of tired and exhausted, unable to act with spontaneity. I think that's how you pronounce that. You have remote schizoid, which is distant and removed, tends to be very isolated. Depersonalized, which is disengaged from others and self. So very dissociated. Often staring into space, which I think it might be the one that your character has, possibly. and then there's affectless schizoid, which is, I think, what one of my characters has. So they're called, they're almost, they're called, they're uncaring, they're quite socially, what's the word? They have no social skills, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So yeah, they're quite, and yeah, no emotion. So there are different types. Now, this is where I start to go very, I go too far into character building. So you probably won't even need to do this much research, but I think this just helps you to figure out, how their condition affects them in terms of, trying to make their condition consistent, so that even if you don't specify which condition it is or which subtype it is in the script, then you can still keep it as if it's the same person, and keep it realistic, I guess. Sorry, I went off topic now. I forgot what I was actually going to say.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, that does make sense. I think she would be somewhere in between. I'm trying to get my cat out of my room. I think she'd be definitely somewhere in between avoidant and the one you suggested. The
avoidant is. I mean, a lot of them could be.
She's either avoidant or the one you suggested, or somewhere in between, maybe.
Affectless or remote.
Okay. I think remote was the one that you said.
Yeah. I mean, I sent the link to the Wikipedia, and I was, going to have a look.
Wait, no, let me look.
And also, there's lots of comorbid disorders as well. So they might also have other personality disorders. They might have PTSD. They might have anxiety, or dissociative disorder, I think. They might have autism. So there's lots of comorbid that you could go down if you wanted. Lots of interesting. An interesting article, I think. Yeah, so. Oh. You can hear that?
Sorry about that. That was my wife calling. I was unmuted too.
No worries.
Yeah. One of the questions I had though was, would it be interesting to explore flipping the narrative, like instead of calling it, like instead of looking at it always as a disorder, like if you're interested in not vilifying the traits. So one of the things when people talk about autism, they call it autism spectrum disorder, but like if you ever have heard Temple Grandin talking, she's probably one of the most famous autistic people on the planet. She often talks about it as like as an alternate wiring, and she's certainly very capable of doing things that nobody else can do. And so maybe exploring like what does it give the character, like to have these particular traits. I mean, everything in life is a trade-off, right? And so is it worthwhile exploring, like, does it actually give this character any advantages in certain circumstances to be the way they are? Like, if they're dissociative, is there a circumstance where that actually is an advantage to them?
I was talking about this with Willow when I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we were talking about Toph, who is a blind character. I don't really love them as a character, but their blindness is generally a superpower, which isn't always it's very rarely like that in real life. Sometimes it is, like autism can sometimes be, an advantage in some way, but it is a disability, which means there are things that they can't do and that sort of thing. I think it's And she's always calm. Yeah, her character's always calm because of the disorder. But yeah, I think that it's not ideal to have a just say, oh, they're disabled, which is a good thing. I mean,
No,
that's
yeah,
not how I'm explaining that.
yeah. I wasn't really trying to say that. I was just saying like maybe introduce it as more of a balance that I'm not. Yeah, it's not to
And so they're
say that
missing something, but they're gaining
yeah.
something as well. So
Yeah,
if
like
you
it's
can,
not all, the idea is that it's not all black or white. There's shades of gray, and introducing more of a nuance to the character that it's not always because I think in Hollywood, like they often portray schizoid people as the villain. They're like like I guess like in Split where it's this person who does all these bad things to everyone,
mm,
you know.
that's a different disorder, but yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like often people with mental disorders are portrayed in films, especially. This is why I like shows like The Good Doctor. Like where you have a person with in this case autism, who is the hero, the protagonist of the story, and I'm not saying in every case it's like this, but certainly portraying the characters as more nuanced and not every aspect of the trait being really negative. If there is some, it seems to me that if some attention is placed on that, like it just seems that portraying them as more nuanced would be a way of preventing of falling into this trap that I think you're worried about. Does that make sense? Or
You are right that I don't want her to ever be like quote unquote fixed. Because I think in real life, like you can't necessarily change personality disorders at all. Like that's just how you are.
Yeah.
And you can like find ways to adapt to like how the rest of the world generally functions. But yeah, I
You can
definitely don't want
mask.
to be like
You can mask rather than if you have
are you saying?
if you have schizoid personality disorder, you will generally mask as opposed to change your you can't change your
Masking.
brain. Yeah, mask it.
Yes.
That thing
Yes,
that's not
yes.
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, masking is so they thought I had schizoid personality before they figured out I was autistic, so it's always been an interesting window. What were you saying, Willow?
Yeah. I know the conversation is all about like the issues this person is going through, but I want to know what I look for in a disabled character is who are they aside from their disability. What does your character like to do? So for example, Popinjay is an adrenaline junkie athlete. So what does your character enjoy doing? What kind of goals do they have that are completely separate uh from their issues? If you can develop the person as an individual and showcase them as a being, then it makes it a lot easier to showcase their disability and their mental issues with a bit more nuance, showing how it affects them and such. So I want to know who is your character? Who what do they like to do for fun? What's that one thing that will tickle them to make them laugh, or their little pet peeve or something?
I'm not sure if it'll count as separate because again, I don't know, I really went all in with the symbolism for these two characters. They're very much like yin and yang, but for her name is Nyx, by the way, Nyx. And because like she likes space. She really loves being in space. It's a world where you can just go bop around in space and you won't die. I think she can't die. I'm still figuring that part out. But that could arguably be connected to her love of being alone and just having space because she's in space. But she loves the way it looks. I guess she's passionate about traveling it and just seeing all the beauty it has to offer. All like the I can't remember that C.S. Lewis thing. I think it was some C.S. Lewis talks about space travel in some sort of weird elevator or coffin, but it mentioned something like where the beauty this guy realized wasn't even so much in the planets and stars as much as it was in the space in between. That's what I sort of think of with her. And
I love that. And I think that's a great jumping off point of I think that's a great jumping off point to start with. Tell me about their love of space. Is it that they love Star Trek and the fantastical building a fictional world where there's no endless possibilities, or do they love stargazing and want to go out on a hill to watch the meteor shower? What is it? Not just about the space. The space kind of helps to facilitate their loneliness, finding something that they enjoy while being by themselves. So
If they have schizoid personality disorder, there aren't going to be many things that they do enjoy because that's part of the disorder.
Yeah, anhedonia is a big old blockade to that. But I was thinking, and this, I love projecting onto my characters. Isn't that what writing is all about? Is projecting onto your characters?
Oh yes.
I have at some point, she decides she's gonna take her internal fantasy world and just in a streak of uncharacteristic passion, being like, no, like something, and she just makes this horrible, like, I don't know, web series or fanfic, or she just like tries to make something for the first time in her life, basically, and it turns out like garbage. And like not many people see it anyway, but she is just humiliated that it ever happened. But I want one of the people who read it, just some new character. I want her to see Nyx's story and just be totally enraptured. And I want that to be their starting point, where they become friends. And then friendship happens and plot happens. And you know, like those visuals in your head that like you don't know how it's going to happen yet, but you really want the story to take you there?
Yeah.
For this, it's like Nyx will often spend the end of episode, like emotional episodes, like just staring at the void and like putting her hand like into the hole so she's touching behind her back. And I want her to do that again, but someone grabs her hand from the other side and it's her new friend. So that's like, you see where I'm going with the symbolism? We're just kind of...
It's really interesting when you're talking about this, because when I heard you say space, I immediately thought of void, not like outer space. I mean, it sounds to me like the character enjoys emptiness, this idea that there is this void and likes to spend time in the void. Is this the right takeaway, or?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, it is pretty funny that I have like outer space and also a void, and she likes being in both. Because one is a black void, and the other is space with planets and nebulas and stuff. So maybe there's a connection to be drawn.
Well, it actually made me think of like, so one of my guitar heroes is this guy who kind of is the way you describe. He's this he's the most unsung guitarist that people. I don't know if you've ever heard of Robert Fripp. He's like this amazing guitar player that nobody knows because he has this, you know, lack of ability to really connect with people, you know. And when he talks about music, he talks about silence. He even describes music as the cup that holds the wine of silence. And you see, so he's always seeking silence. And it kind of made me think of this when you were talking about your character, that you know, and yet this individual, this guitarist, is one of the most brilliant guitarists in the world, I think. And you know, but like he kind of has these, you know, like people think of music mostly as noise, but he's always seeking the silence in it. And so I don't know if that resonates with your character, you know, this idea of like seeking the spaces.
Wow. I think it definitely is different where like Robert Fripp sounds like he glorifies silence and like honors it and like seeks to exalt it. Or
Yeah.
like Nick's like sort of sees it as a parent or just something that will never judge her or ask anything of her. But I'll definitely go and like, I'm intrigued. Is it FRIPP?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to go listen. Because that sounds like a very cool relationship with silence and a medium that is inherently not silent.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. You know, he's a very strange character. I mean, like he's the leader of a band, and he spends all his time in the backstage. Everyone else is lit, and he's in the shadow. You know, and always playing in the shadow, sitting in a chair, way in the back. You know, and this is who he is, but brilliant. You know, the music is like, yeah, it's very interesting and creative, and yeah.
That also reminds me. Yeah, anyone stop me if I'm getting too heavy? I just am a sad piece of shit. But I wanted to and I said this is like sort of a weird metaphysical smell. This is metaphysical Jello. That's the show. It's metaphysical Jello, and someone in the apartment where they live, which like all the doors go to different dimensions and yada yada yada. But someone in their apartment complex has learned how to chip away some of the void and has a cart set up with the little plastic sample cups. It's like saying, "Oh, everybody, try some of the void," and like Nyx, of course, loves the void and is intrigued, and on a whim just picks it up and like puts crumbly void cake into her mouth and has like one of those weird mindfucky like music swells like in Day in the Life by the Beatles, like that. And like we see this uncharacteristic emotion where she is just blown away and almost crying. And of course it's a metaphor for death. And another song I'll bring into the mix, Dinner Is Not Over by Jack Stauber. It's very popular right now. But that's a really interesting song about how death is dessert, but you can't have it till the dinner is over, so put it down. And that sort of mentality, that's why she ends up not going into the void in the end, because one, I need her for the rest of the story. And two, like, I don't know. Dinner isn't over. I can't articulate things, but
I know
why did I start talking?
Sounded good.
Yeah. It would be, I don't think it would be like a kid's cartoon. I don't think I ever want to give it to a studio. It'd be like my own weird bullshit. But just an exploration of sort of weird topics that you can't talk about, like being so intrigued by the idea of death, like not really committing to like seeking it out, but just wondering and fantasizing like, man, think if you just had to deal with nothing, think if you just didn't have to be. So, but yeah, and I have to make this very same character have like, she's a very humorous character. It's weird because she has such a hard time feeling emotion, but at the same time, I don't know, I want her to provide this very dry, chaotic energy. But then there's all the sad shit.
Yeah, I don't know, because, I mean, obviously, you might not choose schizoid in the end.
I don't think I would ever say that. I think at most it would be coded.
It'd be what?
It would be schizoid coded. And even then, I'm not sure I really want to run the risk of like misrepresenting anyone. That would be bad.
Yeah. So as always, make sure you do your research and, you know, look at multiple people who have the disorder. If you can, talk with them. If not, you know, watch a load of YouTube videos. But yeah, I guess I lost my train of thought.
I kind of lost the question. I didn't.
Yeah, I guess you can absolutely have there's lots of autistic coded characters at the moment, and I'm sure you know all the headcanons that people come up with for, you know, autistic characters or characters that they think might be autistic. And so yeah, you could absolutely go ahead and have a schizoid coded character. Yeah.
Say
autistic coded characters are the best. Sorry, Willow.
And I'd say expand on the whole space thing and like equating the void with outer space, even like mention like the fantastical realm or what's going on inside her head. Like use that and help her to find an interest in something, or I don't know. Just give her something, some kind of other personality or other goals that are separate, but that her issues still affect them.
Got it. I'm going to brainstorm on that. Thanks for all your input, guys. Sorry it was sort of a non-question, but I'm glad we discussed it anyway.
I enjoyed talking about it.
This is a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
These kind of conversations is the whole reason this workshop exists, is exactly for patients.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Brainstorming ideas and pulling from each other's knowledge. I mean, if I wanted to, you know anything about autism, then I've got, you know, a couple of people to ask here. Yeah, so that's what workshop is about. If it so happens that someone with a disability will write about it here, and they're happy to share, you know, it's all about sharing information. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if Mitch will come next week. In script, was it script camp or WordCamp that we were talking in the disability chat? We were talking about dissociative identity disorder, which, boy, I have so many feelings about in terms of how it's represented in the media, and I could easily go on a tangent. I actually have a cousin who is a psychologist. Yeah, I always get psychologists and psychiatrists mixed up. A psychologist who is going to help me with figuring out stuff to make sure that I'm not adding to the misinformation that's already in existence. Yeah, media sucks. Which is not brilliant thing to say as the aspiring screenwriters who want to get into a media industry. But yeah, and so I will see if we can make next week sort of DID focused, possibly other personality disorders. We'll see how we go. Maybe review what is it called? Like Split and movies like that. So yeah. We will make for true media. We will be the media. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of spectrum of disorders, autism is a spectrum. And I think it's interesting because when you say a spectrum, people think of like a linear spectrum, like really, really mild, so that you don't notice it, to really, really severe. And that's not true at all. It's more of a kind of spectrum. But I'm sure I will touch on that another time.
Well, I've had personal experience with ASD, so I know just how diverse that is. So yeah. So my son is ASD, and I've known quite a few people with autism, and I mean, there's as many different forms of autism as there are people who have it. You know, it really isn't a question of degree. It's really, yeah, it's exactly like you say. I mean, there's so many variations.
I know it's cliche, but I absolutely love the phrase of if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, and that goes for any other kind of disability or even just characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I tend to harp on, well, what makes Nick's unique and different from the next person who has the schizoid disorders and such.
Yeah. That
I
makes
just remembered
sense.
that today. Oh, so go on. When you go say something.
I'm actually gonna send a link to the Gray Ghost about Robert Fripp. Because he has some pretty awful stuff he does with his wife, but there's like a good example of like his persona and how he approaches music. Just so that you get a sense. I mean, like, yeah, he's definitely a character.
Oh, hello, Michael. How are you doing? Are you able to talk to us, Michael? Can you hear us okay? Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. It's actually Neurodiversity Celebration Week this week. I forgot about that. I was meant to, think about doing something special this week, and I forgot. I'm sorry. No worries. Me. Is that Michelle? How did you say your name? I'm sorry. I don't. Yeah,
Looks
no
like
worries.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought it was Michael. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I will give you mine when I'm stop streaming on YouTube. Yeah. Anyway, I I wonder if anyone else has got any questions about disabled characters. If not, I mean, we are technically going over time. I don't mind, but yeah. If anyone wants to have any closing remarks or anything.
So Joel, I was just wondering if I could present the rewrite of the script at some point.
Yeah, I think that will be next week. I'm going to tentatively say next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I want
Yeah,
to try
'cause
and keep screenplays in script camp. I will
yeah,
occasionally, if we don't have anything in WordCamp, then I might dig out a script. But yeah, I want to try and keep them linked to the server. Or try to.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to monopolize the group's time either. I just thought like if
Yeah, that's the
so
other
that
reason. Have a week
yeah, yeah.
pause.
I look forward to hearing your stuff next week.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, do I want a cupcake or a cake? I don't know. Alright, in that case, it looks like we will stop there for this week. I'm going to get the links for you to join the next gathering. As always, it will be 8 a.m. PST, 11 a.m. EST. And because Britain is still being weird with time zones, it'll be 3 p.m. rather than 4 p.m. I think. I think we still have a week. Yes, we do. So click the interested button. Boom. And then you will get notified. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then click the link in the description so that you can join the server and be a part of it next time. Yeah. Have a wonderful week, everyone. And I might see some of you at the table reads on Sunday, tomorrow.
All right. Well, thanks, Joel.
Yeah, no worries. Have a good one, guys.
You too.